Yo, Pokey26 here, and I am going to be doing another tier list for Direct Strike. I don't think the game's changed all too much since my last tier list, but I have definitely played more, understand the game better, and also since now it's in mixed mode rather than draft mode on W3 Champions, I've probably experimented with some of the units a little bit more as well because you don't always get to control exactly what your draft has. But yeah, I'm just gonna go into it, and this one is going to be a heroes tier list. This one I definitely wanted to redo because before I just kind of placed a lot of heroes in S tier. I was like, they're all kind of the same. I'm going to do like an overall tier list for this, even though even though there is some benefit about talking about like second or third hero choices as well, or like which heroes shine once you get to level 6. Instead, this will just be more of first hero picks generally, but I might make some mention of the values of them as second or third heroes as well. So yeah, let's just get started. Um, I'll just cover the S tier first because I know of a few that I'm definitely placing there regardless. One of them is Beastmaster. Now, you might be thinking, well, Beastmaster only has summons for his spells. Like, he doesn't even have a choice. But the thing is, he's got like decent enough stats. He's fairly tanky. And his summons all have like 400 health on level 1 and do decent damage. You even get the option of going air right away, which can honestly instant win the lane in a couple rounds early on. Maybe it falls off when your opponent has orb or range hero or whatever, but early on it can actually be pretty insane. I don't usually go hawk, but it can be good. Basically, there's just a lot of value to him, and even if you're against dispel, um, usually he still does plenty because it takes a lot of dispels to get rid of his summons, and you can make it so that they don't summon at the same time, so that they're not both getting dispelled in AOE or whatever as well. There's just too much value to him. He's also decent against. He's actually probably the best against tier 3 tech. Like Quillbeast just straight up can beat tier 3 air to some extent, and he's also fairly tanky himself. Bear is good tank versus tanks, so you know I put Beastmaster S tier, and next Cryptlord also S tier. Like these ones are just to me kind of no brainers. Cryptlord is probably the strongest hero in the early game. Uh, he just doesn't really lose to anything really. He really just doesn't lose to anything. Like he might lose some lanes early, but it's usually less so because it's a Cryptlord and more so because of what the units are, right? But yeah, beetles are one of the most insane early game units. You will find out that Cryptlord can win the lane fairly easily early, and he's strong enough to where your next player on your team actually has to build back right away because otherwise they're gonna be fighting under tower because you live so long with all the beetles and Cryptlord being as tanky as they are. But yeah, Cryptlord S tier. The thing with Cryptlord is he's also just very good at tanking once you have Carapace. So the idea is generally you go Beetles level 1, Carapace level 2, and then usually you keep going Beetles, but if Beetles are bad for some reason, like if there's too much Dispel or Breaker's gonna steal it or whatever, eventually you can go max Carapace, and even then he's still really good because he's very tanky. And Carapace, when it's maxed out, actually does 100% return to melee, and has like +7 armor for the Crypt Lord himself. So it's very insane. Like you can see even some heroes like Blade Master essentially remove half of their own life just by attacking you. It's he's just pretty good. Um, yeah, that brings me to my next one, which is Blade Master. Part of me wants to put Blade in A, but the things he can do are just too strong to not put him in S tier. The thing is, Mirror Image combined with like Khadgar's Gem of Health just provides so many tanks on the front line. And because Mirror Image is replicating a hero rather than making a unit like summons, it doesn't typically get dispelled. There are ways it will get dispelled, like if you have buffs on it, the opponent's casters might prioritize dispelling it then. But yeah, the mirror image is insane because the amount of tank ability it provides is just as much, if not more, than other summons. And he's just a very strong right click hero. And Bladestorm is also very good against some of the main threats, which are like breakers and tanks. Like Bladestorm can just melt through breakers and tanks so that you only have to fight like the air units basically. Um let's see what else. What else would I want to put in S tier? This one's a little tricky on what else I would want to put because I kind of want to start spreading them out in other tiers besides S tier. Um, how do I want to do this? I didn't really think of this beforehand, but yeah, maybe I just throw in some other heroes that I know of, like Fire Lord. To me, Fire Lord's like bottom tier. The problem with Fire Lord is lava spawns are kind of weak. They're very good at like level 1. Like when you first get lava spawns, they can have a lot of value. You will definitely win your lane early with them as long as you have enough front line. But they just fall off hard because the lava spawns themselves don't have very good stats. They take a while before they actually replicate. You know, by then they've potentially been dispelled. Incinerate is basically a fancier skill for Orb of Fire, and Orb of Fire is already like super cheap, so that's kind of bad. Soulburn maybe okay. Volcano kind of whatever. If I have to put something bottom tier, it's gonna be like this. So I'm pretty sure some of this is like the same as what I had before, but yeah, I'm gonna start mixing it up a bit here. So I did say I was primarily looking at these as first heroes. Um, but even knowing that, even though Death Knight is such a weak laner early, he still can get some value. But you really need the right sort of lane for it. Like Coil is quick enough to put out quite a bit of damage. Unholy Aura provides a lot of value in multiple ways and gets stronger as the game goes on because move speed to catch up to the lane is very powerful. Animate Dead is pretty decent for like just extra damage, killing stuff, whatever. So I kind of want to put him at B tier. I think before I maybe had him at like C. But I do think he's actually pretty alright. Even as a first hero. He's a little sketchy as a first hero. But he can do okay. And the thing is, he scales really well into late game. So I kind of want to put him at like B. Same with Torn Chieftain. The thing is with these two heroes, they do end up like S tier as like a second or third hero because their auras are extremely powerful. Normally, you have to buy these auras in the shop for 500 something gold, but instead, you can just get the hero with them instead. So they are S tier as like second and third heroes, but like overall and primarily first hero, they're definitely a bit lower. You know, like B or C type area. I'm gonna put them B for now because I do think they scale well. Especially once you get to their ultimates or like max level aura, they start getting pretty powerful. And let's put priestess there as well, I think. Or is priestess more like a C? Honestly, priestess might be more like C tier. I think priestess is more like C tier. The thing is, priestess can provide a lot of damage as well. Let's say it's similar to coil in the sense that it's just a lot of damage that pokes out over and over. But she doesn't really do much. She's much better as like a second or third hero. However, her ultimate is very valuable. You can do a lot of damage with it, but it can oftentimes get countered by healing. Like if your opponent has heal wards and heal wave or alchemist heal spray or tranquility, like these can oftentimes negate Starfall to some extent. So even with her ultimate, I'd put her like down here, like C tier. Paladin is like A tier. Paladin is probably besides TC and Death Knight, Paladin might be besides TC, Death Knight, and one of the heroes I haven't talked about, Shadow Hunter. I think Paladin might be one of the other S tier heroes for like second and third hero. But as a first tier hero, I do think he's very powerful, but I would still only put him at A tier because he can definitely get overrun and not do much in the early stages. Because with Divine Shield, Devotion Aura, and Holy Light, he doesn't really do damage per se, right? Like he's just kind of a tank that's just there. At least with like Death Knight, you're getting some coils getting thrown out, which can sometimes even just outright kill the opponent's hero if they're not very tanky of a hero. But Paladin can't really do that. However, he's still extremely valuable because you can do certain strategies. I do this with Blade sometimes as well, where you just put the Paladin up front. You have him tank all the early damage, and the rest of your lineup that is like just behind it but not tanking is killing everything, right? And by the time your Paladin's about to die, he just procs Divine Shield, and you've already gained enough advantage in your lane from that to where Paladin has served his value. Because it essentially means your wave's not losing anything during that first bit where the Paladin is tanking. So that can be pretty strong. You're also not providing corpses if your opponent has like Trip Lord, let's say. I do put him at A tier, but he is much better as like a second or third hero too, I believe. He's not bad as a first hero, but second and third hero is also pretty good because you can go Divine Shield level 1 and then just go Devotion, Devotion, Holy Light, Devotion, and just huge aura buff for your lineup. Pretty good too. Yeah, I will still put on A tier. This one is so before I had Keeper S tier, but I actually want to put Keeper at A tier now. Now, obviously, he's still extremely strong. He can be a reason you outright win your lane. Tranquility is huge value. But he has clear weaknesses too. Because apart from Treants, he doesn't do a whole lot early game. Entangle can sometimes provide value, but mostly if you're against something like Demon Hunter or Blade, where you want to keep him in track, or keep him in place from like doing anything. I don't know. This might seem weird to not put keeper at S tier, but I am thinking he's more like A tier because I think I think people are good enough to break through keeper lineups, and I think a lot of melee heroes are too. I think a lot of melee heroes, like even Blade and stuff, are just too strong for a keeper to break through. Like Blade can literally just chop through the trees, and then you know, what's the keeper doing? Nothing. So I will actually put him at A tier. It is questionable. Tinker also A tier. I think Tinker's currently like maybe bugged or something on level 6, where if you have rings of regen and tanky stuff, whatever, he just I don't know if it's actually a bug or if it's by design. Like maybe that's what his ultimate does. Maybe I haven't read it fully or something, but basically he can be near unkillable for some people if he has like ring of protection, talisman of evasion, 2 to 3 rings of regen, and then like whatever. So the fact that you can do that, like how well he scales into late game, and even without items, how well he scales into late game, like cluster rockets can be pretty insane for blasting through casters or backline tier 1 range units. Uh, I do have him at A tier. And the other thing with Tinker is he's one of the strongest level 1 heroes. I don't necessarily want to say the strongest. He will actually lose even with Factory on level 1 versus some heroes. Like Criplord with Beetles can actually outlast him, or same with Beastmaster. Not always, but they can. So that's why he's like A tier. He's very strong. He scales well, but I still wouldn't put him in that S tier section. So I'll put him at A tier. Um, Dark Ranger. Dark Ranger is very tricky to rate. At some point, I had Dark Ranger S tier because she is one of the heroes that can, like, Dark Ranger and probably like Keeper are some of the best heroes at just ending the game as quick as possible. They can easily stack and power level and own. But the problem with Dark Ranger is there's way too many counters. Basically, magic immune units, uh, units that don't provide corpses like Banshees and MGs, air units, uh, anti magic shell also is similar to magic immune units because it can block the arrow from proccing. Um, Mechanical units. There's just way too many things that make Dark Ranger bad. And although Charm is insane when you first reach level 6 as a first hero, it does start to fall off at some point, and it's not good versus everything. Like if your opponent's playing Hippo Riders and that's their main unit, you're not getting a lot of value out of Charming because it's a Hippo Rider and not like a Chim or a Worm or whatever, right? I will still put her at B tier, but even this is maybe controversial. I'm sure there's a lot of people that probably want to put her at A or S. I'm going to put her at B tier because I think there's too many weaknesses, and I think, yeah, but mostly just that there's too many weaknesses to her. She also gets owned by a lot of melee heroes because if the opponent stacks a melee hero with items and the melee hero is good enough to beat whatever your front line is, type of thing, Dark Rangers doesn't provide anything at that point because she doesn't know damage to them. She can essentially get bugged out from Amulet of Spell Shield if you don't have other ways to proc Spell Shield beforehand or whatever. Uh, yeah, too many weaknesses. B tier. Okay. Pit Lord. Ooh. How do I rate Pit Lord? I honestly haven't experimented with Pit Lord enough, but he's one of the bottom two tiers. I just don't know if he's actually like bottom tier to me. Because he can get very strong with cleave and item stack with belts of strength and stuff, but he has way too many weaknesses. I'm actually going to put him D tier. I think he just has too many weaknesses as well. Similar to Dark Ranger having too many weaknesses. Maybe C tier. We'll put him C tier. I think even if he runs into his weaknesses, if you play it smart, you can still just convert into like Rain of Fire, and he's like okay value, and he can do cleave as like secondary type thing. Or you can do Howl and like cleave as like a secondary type thing. But generally, you want to stack him with like cleave and stats and items. But there's a lot of weaknesses with that, so I'm gonna have him like C tier. Part of reason why he's C tier is just because he also has very good stats. Like his base stats are insane. He has very high damage to start with, and like good health pool and all that. Yeah, he's like okay-ish. He can shine, but yeah, a lot of weaknesses. So C tier. Oh, where to go next? Naga Sea Witch, let's say. So I was always pretty low on Naga Sea Witch. I thought she was like one of the worst heroes, if not the worst hero. But I actually kind of want to place her a little bit higher now. The fact that she's ranged, I don't know. There's always some benefit to being ranged because it's easier to stay alive. But honestly, her tornado is okay. If you actually are playing a stall lineup, I think Naga Sea Witch is pretty good. Because her tornado, unlike Archmage's tornado, her tornado actually seems to go off when you want it to. Like it's pretty quick to go off, and it's very good at stalling. Fork Lightning and Frost Arrow are like okay, but they're not exactly amazing. Yeah, she's like C tier. I definitely don't put her at bottom tier anymore because I have seen Tornado be amazing, but there's just not a whole lot to her that makes her that great. Because Mana Shield seems pretty bad. Problem with Mana Shield, of course, is as far as I know, this hasn't changed, but it doesn't actually proc Mana Shield until she's like fairly low health, which means you never actually get full value out of Mana Shield. If Mana Shield procced instantly, like the first time you take damage, it could actually be pretty good, right? Because you could stack her with Robes of Magi to get damage and mana, and just place her at the front of your lineup, and she'd be like a super tank doing lots of damage, and you just clean stuff up. But it just doesn't work like that. Maybe there's some way to do that with like Sork Invis and like Priest Heal and Rejuve from Bears, stuff like that. Heal wards. There's probably ways to utilize her as some sort of tank where she does proc Mana Shield and then gets healed up after, and Mana Shield just stays on, and then maybe she's actually insane. But it's way too unreliable. So yeah, I'll put it C tier. I don't want to put it D tier anymore, but still C tier. Dreadlord. I think Dreadlord also B tier or C tier. No, it's got to be B tier. The thing with Dreadlord is he has potentially one of the strongest level 6s, level 6 ultimates right when you reach level 6. Now, Infernal isn't as good as the game goes on, particularly if your opponent has units that are good at hitting the Infernal, like maybe Wyvern or Hippo Riders type of thing, rather than magic damage. But when you first reach level 6, Infernal is one of the things that can instantly turn the game around. And there's not very many ultimates that can do that right away on level 6. There are some, but usually they're not able to provide that much value right away. And then besides that, Carry On is solid. Sleep can get good value situationally. Vampire is alright, especially if you have melee heroes that benefit from it, like Dreadlord himself. So I'll put him B tier. Yeah. Warden. Warden. How do I rate Warden? It's definitely S or A tier. I think I have to put. Do I have to put Warden S tier? The thing is, if you're far behind, Warden's actually pretty bad because Blink suddenly loses all of its value because you can't blink under Fortress. So suddenly your Warden's just up front dying, which makes me kind of want to put it at A tier. But the thing is, there's way too many situations where she is S tier. She is the reason your whole team wins the game. Because if you get to the moment where she reaches level 6 quickly because of Blink, staying alive longer, she then gets to Avatar Vengeance, and then Avatar Vengeance is similar to Infernal. Probably a little bit worse, but similar to where it can provide a lot of damage and just turn the wave. But I really don't know if I want to put her A tier or S tier. Because when I think of her as S tier and compare her to these three heroes, pretty sure she just loses to these heroes. So I think I'm going to put her A tier because she can get punished by silences. Silence from Dark Ranger, Priestess, Soulburn from Friar Lord, maybe even Entangle from Keeper. Particularly if she's the last thing alive from your lineup, the Keeper can come in and entangle it at the end, and your units will continue focusing it because it's the only unit there or only hero there, whatever. So I'll put her A tier, but she is definitely a hero that can be potentially the strongest because Blink is able to be one of the best abilities at stacking with other waves. And that means you can then provide auras by putting auras on the Warden. You can get like an early Unholy aura because it'll not only help the Warden with regen, which you kind of want, but it's just a decent aura to provide to allies as well. Get you in the fight quick as well. It's all good. And then you can go other auras like endurance, devotion, true shot, whatever you need. On top of like Ring of Regen plus Sobi Mask type of thing. Yeah, I do think Warden's insane, but I am gonna leave it at A tier, I guess. I want A tier to be like very strong, like Keeper, Paladin, Tinker are all very strong, but not necessarily S tier. Panda. Panda's another one that's very tricky. Can I really put Panda as? I think Panda is also just A tier. Panda as well can be insane. Like Breath of Fire can absolutely crush. Panda's very good when he reaches 6 as well. but he is a little bit weak in his lane early. Like when he's on level 1 and level 2, he can sometimes just die right away if your opponent has enough frontline and you like don't, like your frontline's not able to last. Yeah. This is one of those ones where Panda, Warden, Keeper, for instance, I think could all potentially be S tier, but I'm gonna place them A tier just to like show that there are some sort of weaknesses to them. But Panda is definitely really strong and could be S tier as well. But I'm gonna put him A tier. He does scale well. Do I want Panda? I still want to put him S tier, but Blood Mage, B tier. Blood Mage, similar to something like Dark Ranger. Actually, I'll put Blood Mage and Lich here at the same time because I kind of want to talk about them together because they're like the same thing where they have very big weaknesses, which is magic immunity, anti-magic shell, mechanical. I guess mechanical not for Blood Mage, but for Lich, until Lich gets Death and Decay at least. But yeah, basically they have some big problems with breakers, dryads. If you're Lich, you have problems with mechanical. You have problems with banshees and anti-magic shell. Blood Mage a little bit weak to air until Phoenix, and Lich weak to mechanical until Death and Decay. Like they're pretty similar, and they're both very strong situationally, but they have glaring weaknesses similar to some of these other heroes too in this kind of B tier area. But they do scale well. Their ultimates are strong. Phoenix can last multiple waves because the egg isn't a priority target since it can't attack back, meaning it can oftentimes stay until your next wave and then spawn back up again. And Phoenix is a lot of damage. So Blood Mage pretty strong. Death and Decay very valuable with decent AoE and like percentage damage, I believe. That is really good against like MGs, tanks. It can be decent enough against other things like breakers and whatever as well, just to get rid of them because breakers are pretty tanky versus most things, or not everything can target them because you can't always make melee normal damage units. It's hard to sometimes add enough normal damage units because they start dying too quick later on. So Death and Decay can do that and get rid of the breakers for you as well. They're both very valuable, but only like B tier. They will definitely shine situationally. Like Nova and Flame Strike can absolutely obliterate stuff. They're some of the highest damage spells, AoE spells in the game. But yeah, definitely some weaknesses there too. So I would put them B tier. These other heroes are also tricky. Shadowhunter, I'm gonna put A tier. Shadowhunter has the strongest ultimate in the game, which makes me want to put it S tier because it makes sense to have the literal strongest ultimate as an S tier thing. But Shadowhunter is definitely a bit weak early. He doesn't provide damage really unless you go snakes, but even then snakes are like they're just like a small supplementary damage. They're not that huge. Heal Wave is strong, but it's more of like a stalling thing. So like the best use you're gonna get out of Shadowhunter early is like stalling under tower with Heal Wave. But that's not always reliable, right? So yeah, I'll put him S tier. But he is definitely one of the strongest heroes in the game. You definitely really like him as a second or third hero. You can even get like 1 point of Hex. Big Bad Voodoo is insane, of course. Heal Wave is very good support skill. So I will put him at A tier, but I don't think I want to put him S, similar to some of these, because even though these can shine as well, like Panda and Keeper and Warden and stuff, they're not really S tier, I would say. In fact, part of me wants to put like everything down one tier, and then put like maybe Paladin, Tinker down one tier, these down one tier, these down, and so on. And then have this A tier be like Keeper, Warden, Panda, Shadow. I don't know. Maybe Paladin still belongs there too. Maybe this is just fine as is. This A tier looks good. This one, some of these are really tricky as well. Archmage. Part of me wants to put it A tier, but I think he's more like B tier. The thing is, water alleys are. Archmage is just not reliable enough, basically. That's the problem. Water alleys are not super good compared to the other summons. They're probably a little bit better than lava spawns, but lava spawns are probably better on level 1 anyways. Actually, I don't even know if water alleys are better than lava spawns. It's more that Archmage gets water alleys plus blizzard that makes him so powerful, and then later he provides aura too, which can be very good for other heroes or sometimes casters. But I think B tier, because he's way too questionable on how good he's going to do. Blizzard is unreliable, for one. Water alleys are a bit weak, but still powerful just because it's a summon. Brilliance Aura doesn't always match your lineup, but it's generally good. And then mainly his ultimate is a problem, because even though I said there was some value with Tornado from Naga Sea Witch, and that's why I have her like C tier instead of D, Archmage's Tornado seems to be less reliable. Like, even if I disable Blizzard and Water Alley, he sometimes seems to just not cast Tornado. He just sits there auto attacking, and I'm like, I just want to stall, bro. Can you cast that? And he just doesn't. So, because of the unreliability of Archmage, I'm going to just put him at B tier. But if Tornado felt more reliable to me, like maybe I've been unlucky or something, but maybe I would consider him. I don't know. I think B tier is fine for him. He's definitely really strong, but you do have to sometimes like turn off Blizzard until the wave actually meets, and then turn it on so that the Blizzard actually hits reliably and stuff. It requires extra micro, and it's still unreliable. And yeah, I'll put him B tier. Mountain King. Oof. Mountain King is very interesting. I think I have to put him C tier. Like part of me wants to put Mountain King and Demon Hunter both at C tier. They're pretty similar in some of what they can do. But if you get a melee hero, you want it to be like one of these ones, right? You don't really want it to be these. And if it's not one of these ones in A or S tier, then you want it to be one of these ones like Dreadlord that can get Infernal on 6, or Death Knight TC that once they have their aura maxed out, they're pretty insane. But Demon Hunter and Mountain King, you really only want them against people that are making a lot of tier 1 melee. So you have to identify that your opponent is actually doing that, and that they don't have anti-magic shell. But these heroes can be good. Like a high level Mountain King and Demon Hunter both can be very strong for sure. Like Mountain King can just straight up kill a ton of stuff by himself if he's stacked out with Avatar and stuff. So like part of me wants to put both Mountain King and Demon Hunter like B tier as well, but they're just too unreliable compared to the other ones, I would say, because they oftentimes have to tank themselves. When you think about these other melee heroes, right? Like Paladin can tank himself, but then Divine Shield to split the tanking to other units afterwards. Tinker has Pocket Factory to tank for him a bit. Beastmaster and Criplord obviously have their summons. Blade Master has his mirror image. Warden doesn't have something else to tank for it, but similar to Divine Shield, it can blink out and then something else tanks, and then Warden comes back into the fight. The only one here that's not really like that is Panda. Panda just kind of has to tank himself. But I think Panda's just more reliable because his Breath of Fire is very fast and good solid damage. He's got like okay stats. You can still get Drunken Brawler for crit plus evasion. And I think Panda just generally scales better, and you don't necessarily need items on him either. Whereas Demon Hunter and Mountain King really want a lot of items, and sometimes you can't afford to get all those items without just losing your lane. So I'll put them like C tier, but situationally they can be pretty good, particularly against ghouls and hoodies. If you get like, you don't even necessarily need Fire Orb on them, you can just immolate or clap them down. They can be very strong. Demon Hunter and Mountain King can definitely win outright pretty well early on, but they can be overrun by summons sometimes, and they can collapse under tower because they're melee heroes, and they have some problems to them. So C tier for them. And I've been avoiding putting these ones here because I am I'm even more unsure of these than these ones. I think I want to actually put both of these at S tier. But they could also just be A tier like the others, because they're all pretty similar. The thing is, with Farseer, heroes like Keeper can probably beat Wolves straight up in a lot of situations, but Farseer has better spells overall until level 6. But even level 6, Earthquake is still valuable for ending the game, which is important too, because Earthquake can just do 1,000 damage to the fortress, which is insane. You do that 4 times, the fortress is gone. With Farseer, the key with Farseer that separates it from some of these, even though Farseer can lose to some of these for sure, is that Farseer has access to so many valuable tools to switch between. You generally go Wolves on 1, but if the situation is bad for Wolves beyond that, you start maxing out Chain generally, and then you go Firebolt. Like you can switch, you can convert out of Wolves. If Wolves do continue being valuable, then Wolves are plenty fine as well. Like Wolves are pretty good, they get pretty good damage. Yeah, chain scales very well. Like more targets and more damage is pretty good. And then Firebolt is similar to Mountain King's Stormbolt. Very cheap mana as well. It's only 60 mana for the Farseer. Farseer does really well with like Robe of the Magi because he can actually use his mana up, and this gives him that little bit extra mana he needs, as well as plus 10 damage. And then, you know, he can also end the game with Earthquake. So there's just a lot of valuable things that come with having Farseer over the other heroes. Now, his ultimate is lackluster in terms of like combat, of course. In that sense, you would rather have something like Tranquility. But at the same time, like all of these ultimates in A tier are better than Farseer's. But Farseer is just better all around in getting to 6, right? He's like like his attacks like okay. Uh like I said, with Robo Magi, good way to scale him. And then having potential triple spell with Bolt, Wolves, and Chain, or at least dual spell that you can, switch between. Like you can go Wolves on one, and then Chain, Bolt, Chain, and then Bolt afterwards if you don't need Earthquake. Like, there's just too much good about him that I think he's worthy of S tier, but I could see him being A tier as well. Because he's not too different from some of the other A tier heroes. I don't know. It's hard to say. And maybe Keeper should be S tier as well. Because Keeper is one of the best at just stalling. I will actually switch Keeper. I think because Keeper is very good at just winning early, but also good at stalling, I'll put him at S tier. And then Alchemist, I'm going to put S tier as well. Now, Alchemist might seem like a weird one because he doesn't actually have a summon, and he's not a ranged hero. But I've seen way too many cases lately, in particular, where he's just way too strong. Now, I don't actually know if there's value to playing Chemical Rage. That seems kind of bad. But I do think he's extremely valuable, not only as a first hero, but a second and third hero as well. Like as far as second and third hero support heroes go, you want DC, Death Knight, and if you don't get those, then you want like Paladin, Shadowhunter, Alchemist, I would say. Like those are the best second heroes in the game, probably. Like three of them are, or two of them are Moose Biaras, another one is Inara, and potentially healer with Holy Light. And the other one's a healer, and then Alchemist is also a healer. Like those are generally the best 5, I would say, at second and third heroes. But Alchemist can also just win outright pretty easily with Acid Bomb. Now there is a big weakness here, which is Magic Immune and Anti-Magic Shell and stuff like that. But Alchemist does have some benefits here, which is, unlike some of the other heroes that struggle with magic immunity, he has another spell that can work great against it still, which is Heal Spray. Because Heal Spray is a lot of heal that can go on your front line, and you can break through things like breakers, or you can make it so Dryads don't do any damage to you, essentially, because if you're healing grunts with Heal Spray, for instance, Dryads are never killing that. Yeah, and then he also can attack air naturally as a melee hero, which means you don't even necessarily need an orb on him, which is also pretty valuable. Being able to take out, potentially fairy dragons early, or do well against tier 3 techers, because there are quite a few tier 3 tech players. And yeah, you can do well with that without even needing to buy the orb, which means you can purchase more units instead to help. So yeah, I will put him S tier, which is potentially questionable. I could see him be more like A tier. Yeah, I think this is what my tier list would be for for primarily first hero, but somewhat taking into account like late game second/third heroes. Like I at least discussed them. But yeah, this is my new tier list. It definitely changes some things up. I would say the biggest thing to know is that A tier contains heroes that definitely can be S tier situationally, and have top tier ultimates and stuff too. And then B tier has a couple. B tier is like that tier where there's like too many weaknesses to them, but they can also really shine. You know, like TC and Death Knight are both a bit weak early, but they definitely shine with their auras and their ultimates and stuff. Dark Ranger has a lot of weaknesses, but can outright win games. Dreadlord Infernal is insane when you first reach 6. Um, Blood Mage and Lich have huge magic damage, but you know, a bit weak if have anti-magic shell or magic immunity units and stuff. Uh, Maybe Archmage is a little awkward there compared to the rest, but I think Archmage is just very valuable with the tools he has. He's just not reliable. So I think he's just like a B tier. Anyways. Yeah. And then these tier I would avoid. You will take MK and Demon Hunter sometimes, in particular, like those two, if there's no better choice for sure. And they will just outright win your lane sometimes against, you know, ghouls and footies in particular, but they can struggle sometimes too. So I have a message you. Anyways, this is my tier list.